Howdy, boys and girls, and welcome back. You notice I enunciated that one. I was really careful. Welcome back to the Carla and Crappy Show. Thank you. We're sort of back in a groove here. The two weeks in a row. First off, a happy International Podcasting Day. I guess technically that's us, right?
Yeah, we're technically a podcast, even though we have this little video thing going on. But okay, yeah,
video podcast that still works.
That counts.
It counts. We had fun games last weekend. Stuff that I got a few things that I was a little surprised about, and actually I can start with that because one of the games we talked about was BYU at Michigan, sort of a test to see if Michigan is kind of the real thing or not, sort of a benchmark for them. And man, did they look impressive? I'm not completely convinced that this is something that this is a measure of Michigan rather than a measure of Brigham Young, which as we talked about had won a couple games just with ridiculous comebacks. Maybe those look fluky now. I'm not sure. But Michigan looks solid, particularly run defense, and that's sort of where I'm looking for improvement immediately, because Michigan's defense has been so bad recently. So at least in that respect, I think they gave up like 75 yards rushing against BYU. Obviously, BYU didn't do a whole lot in a 31-0 loss, but I was impressive. We'll see what they do in the conference games to see if they get a little tighter and see how things go. But for that first benchmark, I was impressed with the team up north. What for the stuff that we saw last weekend? What did you see?
Well, first of all, I picked BYU, so fail on my part. The last thing, I think I tweeted that at one point last Saturday night, like that I had gotten BYU really wrong. I got UCLA, Arizona really wrong, and so that my only hope was Utah, which I got really right. And
really right. You were really.
And I was really right about Utah. But that's actually, it's interesting you talk about Michigan. Suddenly, that Michigan loss at Utah. Not looking all that bad after what Utah went up and did against Oregon. First of all, that was impressive.
Yeah.
I thought Utah could win that game. I didn't think they could win it by that much. I think that kind of is what we learned, or what I was kind of the overall feeling that I got out of coming out of last week's games. Is we joked last week about how we were going to solve the Pac-12 South.
Right.
If anything else, the Pac-12 just got even more chaotic than when it was last week before we did this show. Which is why we love college football, right? Arizona. I mean, gosh. I mean, I know I knew Solomon got hurt, but gosh, they just did not look like they had any sort of cohesion. Arizona State was even worse. Oregon falling apart at the seams, really. I mean, they just kind of came unhinged once Utah kind of came in and actually played the role of Oregon. Right. I mean, that's the role that we've seen Oregon play in all these games. So the Pac-12 is in, and quietly Stanford's doing some big stuff, and it's just kind of like, I don't know. Anybody want to win the Pac-12?
We'll revisit the Pac-12 in a couple weeks and try to do better then. Maybe we'll see how that goes.
Maybe we'll know a little bit more by then, and I won't sound like quite an idiot with BYU is going to beat Michigan, and then they don't even score a point.
Well, and that's. I mean, the September games can be kind of difficult to read because you're not really sure about the quality of either team, and when you get in conference play a little bit, you learn a little bit more, and that is what we get to finally get into. There were a few smattering of conference games over the first few weeks of the season, but right now, here we go. This is it will be October on Saturday, and we are starting, and we have good stuff to start with, including this is really interesting. Number 23 West Virginia visits Oklahoma. Oklahoma's ranked 15th. Both teams are 3-0. Oklahoma's about a touchdown favorite. I'm really intrigued by the Mountaineers, but Carl, I'm going to let you go first and see what you think about this one.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that we have a team coached by Dana Holgorsen that's known for its defense this year.
I know. What the hell happened with that? Where did this come from?
Yeah, exactly. Like this is totally out of character for a West Virginia team. Not that their offense is bad.
Right.
They're trucking right along on offense, but they've really kind of had. I mean, that's what they've been known for this year is defense. Quarterback Skylar Howard off to a decent start, and to his season. Now, True hasn't really faced a defense like this Oklahoma defense that they're going to go in and face.
True.
And playing the Sooners at home is never an easy task. Although you could say that, if you look at Oklahoma's schedule, Texas game is next week. Is this one of those look-ahead games that West Virginia could slide in and steal? I have to believe that this West. Of course, I thought that about BYU last week, so maybe I'm completely wrong again. But you have to think that this West Virginia team is pretty. I mean, so far they've been a pretty complete team.
Yeah.
Should be considered a contender in the Big 12, I think, and this is a big game for them if they really want to be a contender. They have to start beating these teams. They've been in the Big 12 for a while now. They've never really gotten that signature win. A win in Norman is a signature win for the program. I also think this is probably one of the best named games because Oklahoma has probably the best named running back in the country in Samaje Perine.
I was not aware.
I love that.
Yeah,
Samaje Perine. Yeah, isn't that a great name?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you got Skylar Howard and Samaje Perine. I love that.
Okay.
But I mean, and he's carrying a good chunk of that offense for Oklahoma. Oklahoma's defense, we've seen some holes. Flip a coin. I don't know if I can pick a winner in this game. I really don't. My gut says it would be really great. I mean, with as much chaos as we've seen so far this football season, what the heck? Go Mountaineers. Just because I would like to see that chaos kind of continue in a Big 12 that we really don't know a lot about anymore. It would be a lot of fun to see West Virginia go in there and win that. Can they do it? I don't know. Gut says Oklahoma at home is tough, regardless of how good the team is.
Sure.
So I guess my gut is leaning go with the home team, go with the favorite, and go with the Sooners. But gosh, I hope it's a good game.
Okay. I'm going to pick West Virginia. And I as I started looking at this a little bit, Dana's offense is what it generally is. Granted, Oklahoma's played kind of a step above in terms of the competition so far, but there's no reason to doubt that the Mountaineers' offense isn't what we usually expect from it. 11th in total defense so far, 7th in passing defense, a respectable 36 against the run. That's a new thing. For the Mountaineers under Coach Holgren's. So this is the time when West Virginia does need to step up, and their October is just horrible.
That schedule's brutal.
OU, Oklahoma State, Baylor, a bye week, and then TCU. Boom, 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 boom. So I mean, it's possible. There's no point in looking ahead because you've just got the meat of the conference right there all lined up in front of you. I'm counting on a little bit of Oklahoma looking ahead to Texas, and perhaps not taking the Mountaineers as seriously as they should. I am picking the West Virginia goes down to Norman and wins this one.
I hope you're right.
Yeah,
just because like I said, it would be fun. I really hope you're right.
I do too. The second noon game on our schedule, we have a 4-0 Iowa Hawkeyes team opening their conference schedule at Camp Randall against a 3-1 Wisconsin. Keep in mind, Wisconsin's one loss was against Alabama in a neutral site. Alabama was bad. Wisconsin is the ranked team of the two. They're at 19, and they're about a touchdown favorite. What do you see here?
I think everything we just said about West Virginia, we can say about Iowa. Not necessarily in the style of play or those sorts of things, but this is an Iowa team that if they're going to play with the big guns this year, this is a game. It's a 4-0 team entering. This is kind of the first big test. I think if Iowa really wants to be considered a contender, they've got to win this game. I just lost my train of thought while I was looking at my sheet. They have wins this year. I mean, everybody's played cupcakes, right? So, but they have two pretty decent wins on their schedule. Iowa State, which is a rivalry game, that always gets interesting. And that almost overtime win that we were just talking about before we started taping over Pitt. And I hate to say this to Iowa, and it's great the 4-0, but gosh, Wisconsin isn't Pitt.
Right.
I mean, that defense, I mean, again, another Wisconsin defense that has shown a bit of weakness. Alabama did a nice job of exploiting that in the opening game of the season. But, I mean, it's still a much better defense than what Pitt has this year. So that gives me cause for hesitation. Also, Wisconsin just, again, they've got the experience, right? I mean, Joel Stave, I think we talked about this before too. Joel Stave is still at Wisconsin,
Right.
The quarterback that just does not graduate. And but the one thing that Wisconsin,
I went to high school with him, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or his older brother or something. This guy's just like, really, he's still there. A big thing for Wisconsin is the fact that Corey Clement's hurt. But in that kind of run scheme that Wisconsin has, does the running back matter? Like the actual physical person, does that matter? Or the fact they just have a guy they can hand the ball to and just go? Are they interchangeable, really? But I do think that could potentially play a role. And if you look at the stats on these two teams, I mean, they're almost identical all the way down the line. Because of experience, because they've been there, I lean Wisconsin in this game. Although this is a Wisconsin team that we really don't know a lot about because they haven't played anybody since Alabama. So this is kind of their first big test after that Alabama loss. I'm sorry, Hawaii doesn't count.
No, it doesn't. So
I lean Wisconsin in this game, but man, Iowa could really shake up the Big Ten if they went in and got a win here.
My Wisconsin pick is kind of a gut pick. And I'm sorry, my West Virginia pick was kind of a gut pick, and this one sort of is too. And I'm in this instance, I don't really see a reason to pick against Wisconsin. The injuries have been tough, although I mean Wisconsin's history is that you find another guy and you plug him in. What's the kid's name? Deal something, Taiwan Deal or something like that. I mean, and he's in his recent play, he's not a ton of carries, but like 4.5 yards per carry average. And just there, boom, there it is again. There's Wisconsin. I think they do what they do in Madison, and I could be wrong. It's tough to know exactly what Iowa is at this point, but
yeah,
I see Wisconsin.
None of their games have been on. I mean, you saw a little bit of them when they played Pitt, but I mean, like I saw Wisconsin against Alabama.
Yep.
I can honestly say I'm not sure I've seen anything of Iowa other than highlights. So you're right. This is kind of a battle of an unknown against what we think we know about Wisconsin, but we could be wrong because of, I mean, a lot has changed since that Alabama game. So this is kind of another flip, toss a coin. Okay. Should be fun. Big Ten football this week. 9-6.
Yes.
Are we gonna score points?
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. No, I can't. You could do like a 24-14. I think that's a nice, respectable Big Ten opening season score. I think that works. Yeah. That works just fine. Our game number 3. In past years, I would look at this and just immediately know which way I'm going. And this time, it's Alabama, number 13 Alabama at number 8 Georgia, and I'm not so sure. What do you think?
I'm not sure anybody's sure. And the fact that the way the line is set on this game at 2.5 tells you everything you need to know about this one. However, the 2.5-point favorite is not Alabama, it's Georgia. And so for the first time since 2009, Alabama is an underdog, which is something that you shouldn't just kind of scoff over. It's like, oh, well, yeah, it's Alabama, whatever. But really, I mean, these kids, all of the entire team has never played a game as an underdog. And I think that's an interesting role. Now, that's something that Saban could capitalize on, and knowing Saban, he very well could do that. But this is an Alabama team that's still reeling from that Ole Miss loss. Yeah, they played a cupcake last week and got a win, and they did what they were supposed to do. But they're going to be coming out with a chip on their shoulder after losing to Ole Miss. But playing in Athens is never an easy thing.
It's not a game where you try to get well.
No, it's and that's the thing with the SEC, right? There's not really a down week other than Vanderbilt. But sorry.
Okay.
I'll talk about Vanderbilt here in a minute. Before we get to I need to mention something about Vanderbilt. And the big knock about Georgia coming into the season, I think everybody kind of hedged their bet on Georgia at the beginning of the year because, I mean, really, are you going to trust a Bulldogs team with a transfer from the University of Virginia as your starting quarterback? I mean, really, like, you look at that on paper and you're like, couldn't be a starter at Virginia in the ACC.
Right.
But is going to go start at Georgia, what? But the thing is, it doesn't matter. When you've got 3 running backs like Georgia does in Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and Keith Marshall, who cares who's playing quarterback? As long as that person is adequate enough to keep the offense moving and to make adjustments at the line as necessary and can throw a few passes here and there. I mean, that run game is brutal. It's absolutely brutal. And I mean, Alabama's defense is good, but Ole Miss found a way to get the offense rolling against them. Gosh, I really think Georgia wins this, especially playing at home. And I think the entire SEC is turned on its head because here you have an SEC with an Alabama team with 2 losses, a Auburn team that's totally falling apart at the moment, and teams like Texas A&M and Mississippi State kind of starting to fill in those gaps. Don't count out LSU and Leonard Fournette, and all of a sudden, the SEC could totally turn itself over from where we were in the preseason, and gosh, that would be fun. So, I really do. I think the Bulldogs win this.
Okay. I'm with you, and I for kind of I guess for kind of different reasons. This doesn't feel like I feel like Nick Saban. I don't want to say he's not interested, but something has changed there. His teams are not automatic. You can't look at this and think this is a dynasty anymore. And as recently as a couple of years ago, that's you looked at Alabama and you thought, oh yeah, I don't know how in the hell you beat them because there were no weaknesses. It's scoring defense. You mentioned Alabama's defense. It's ranked 25th in scoring defense. It's not bad, but that's not that's not the standard that has been in place in Tuscaloosa for the time that Nick Saban's been there. This just doesn't feel like the same kind of Alabama teams that we're used to seeing, and then the fact that it is on the road, it's against just waves and waves of running backs coming out of the Georgia backfield.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I see this as a second conference loss for Alabama.
It's an Alabama team that's looking for an identity. I think that's kind of, we're both kind of thinking that, Saban hasn't even decided on quarterback, really. I mean, he's playing them both kind of interchangeably. You think that, he names one the starter, but yet he comes out in the second quarter. It really feels like an Alabama team that's totally in chaos right now, which is totally uncharacteristic for a Saban team.
Yeah. Who does that with quarterbacks anyway? Why? I don't understand how any team could get along with
with more than one quarterback. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
They should just decide on one and get.
Actually, they did. That was an interesting thing leading in preparation for the Indiana game this weekend. Barrett is no longer listed as co-starter. Cardale Jones is the number 1 quarterback, and JT Barrett is the number 2. So, and I think that's deserved. It was a respectable performance a week ago. You said something about Vanderbilt. There was something.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw this out there just because as we were winding down the show, I needed to get this in there. So this is for those that haven't been following the show for a while. I teach at Middle Tennessee State, and this is homecoming. This is homecoming week, which means that I'm not getting a lot done in class. Okay. Because I'm trying really hard, but it's not as successful as I would like. But Middle's homecoming opponent. Mm-hmm. Is Vanderbilt.
Okay, do we have to handicap this? Is this a possible win for
I think the way that Middle went up and almost beat Illinois at home last week.
Right.
Hung around with Alabama, talking about an Alabama team and still trying to find an identity.
True.
They had a decent showing against Alabama. I mean, yes, they got beat, but and relatively convincingly, but not a complete blowout. They've been in some of these games against these bigger schools, even though they play in Conference USA.
Right.
And Vanderbilt, I don't know if you know much about Vanderbilt, but they're not very good.
Right. I think I actually heard people in on our little weekend trip to North Carolina last weekend use the term "bless their hearts." Would that be an accurate thing to say about Vanderbilt football?
Yeah, bless their hearts.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and then that's the appropriate tone of voice that you use
Okay,
too.
good.
Bless their hearts. Blue Raiders win. Middle wins homecoming.
Oh boy. I
Yes.
am got a pen. I'm writing
happens.
this down.
Middle Tennessee beats Vanderbilt by a touchdown.
Beats Vandy. Boom. Right there. It is written down right there. We're gonna hold you to that. And that will be the first thing that we mention when we come back next week. We will see how that pick goes for you. I'm with you. That would be the awesome thing of the weekend. So guys, here's your reason. Come back next week. We'll see how Middle Tennessee State.
Anything Western Kentucky can do, Middle can do better, right?
See, you got a point. Got a point there, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Carla, thank you as always.
Thank you. Go Blue Raiders.
We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.